Hello and welcome to Get Hyped About Hyperdocs, which is one of my favorite things to chat about with teachers and principals and whoever else is designing learning for students. So say hello if you're here live in the chat. I'm going to put the links to the slide in the chat, but also these slides will be available with the on-demand recording if you are watching this on Flex, on demand. In this session, we will explore what Hyperdocs are, how they can help us organize online learning experiences, and how to create Hyperdocs. If you're new to the whole Hyperdocs concept, it is quite simply a digitally organized learning experience that is meant to engage students in content exploration, reflection processes, and creation of learning artifacts. You might also see Hyperdocs referenced as multimedia text sets. There are a lot of different versions of them out there. For our purposes, we reference the quote-unquote official Hyperdocs website, hyperdocs.co. And we align with a lot of the components of Hyperdocs that true Hyperdocs need, which include elements of engaging, exploring, explain, apply, share, reflect, and extending the learning. All of those elements in some form or another are tied into the Hyperdocs experience. And there are also opportunities to provide collaborative work options through Hyperdocs, allow students to choose their path, choose their project options, help students exercise critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And ultimately, through the work of the Hyperdoc, we don't want it to be passive in nature. We want students to be able to create and share their learning through authentic digital artifacts of learning. The Hyperdocs co-founders are the co-authors of the book, The Hyperdoc Handbook, which has been around for a few years now. Lisa Highfill, Kelly Hilton, and Sarah Landis. The Hyperdocs community is still going strong, especially now with the inclusion of so much digital learning opportunities for students. You can read more about these educators on the Hyperdocs website on their About page. And if you're interested in having the Hyperdoc Handbook for your own, that links to their Amazon page. So why do Hyperdocs make such a good complement to what we're trying to accomplish in distance learning environments? In online learning, Hyperdocs can do a couple of things. They can certainly help with organization. And for those of you who used Google Classroom last year or Schoology in the spring, you know how often you were posting in those spaces and that the streams can get flooded very quickly. And so by using a Hyperdoc, you're able to neatly compile assignment details, videos, resource links, any engagement tasks, anything the student needs to work through the experience, and compile that neatly all in one place. Either a Google Doc or a set of slides. I've even seen Hyperdocs created in forms, PowerPoint, whatever tech tool you are using and your students are comfortable with. Primarily in this session, we're going to talk about docs and slides, Hyperdocs, just because I think that's most prevalent use in our space. Hyperdocs can also provide a space for students to document their work. So when you're pushing out Hyperdocs, giving students a copy of the Hyperdoc that they can work through, they can use it for note-taking, for asking questions, for solving problems, for written responses, and then to build directly in the Hyperdoc or link out to creations that they've made related to the content. And of course, Hyperdocs support collaboration, especially if you're using tools in G Suite that allow for easy sharing among peers. Students can work as partners, they can work together collaboratively as teams to demonstrate their learning. And they can definitely be used in both synchronous and asynchronous settings. So they're not just for independent work. This is a teacher showing how she's using Hyperdoc through her Google Meet synchronous classroom, and the content is right there. She's using it to display. Students are likely following along on their own device with that content. So it's nice to build in those opportunities for synchronous content as well. Thinking about the essential components of Hyperdocs, they start off with some engaging element. So maybe it's a provocative question, a really interesting image or video, some kind of wondering to spark students thinking about the topic. And in the explore mode, students are able to explore links, videos, PDFs, any kind of online text, things that will help build their content knowledge in that area. And you as the teacher are able to infuse additional teaching opportunities. You're explaining concepts, you're providing clarifications, you're asking students to do the same so that they can apply what they've learned through authentic learning situations, and then ultimately create and share their takeaways and get that nice summarizing of learning. Not only that, in true Hyperdocs, there's always an element of student reflection. So after the fact, when the project is complete, how did it go? Building in that self-assessment piece. And then hopefully students will be kind of intrigued by the process and the content, and what comes next. What do they want to learn about? What do they need to rethink based on the experience? And, you know, sometimes you'll see Hyperdocs that don't have every single one of these components. But if you can really start to design around engage, explore, create, reflect, those are the key elements. And keeping that consistent for students will make this a nice routine type of experience for them. In order to best understand Hyperdocs, it's helpful, of course, to look at some examples. And thankfully, there are many teachers out there who have created Hyperdocs for all grade levels, all content areas, and they are open and willing to sharing what they've done to help other teachers get started. And whether you use, make a copy of something that's been shared to the community, or whether you just like the template that it's in and then you replace it with all of your own content, that's totally up to you. Some are very sophisticated in their design, and we'll take a look at that. And others are more simplistic. So you have to keep in mind the developmental level, the readiness of your students, the reading abilities of your students. Some of these have many more text directions that require reading than others do. So let's take a look at some of these examples. Let's start with the solar system example. This is built in a doc, Google Doc. This is one of the templates available on the Hyperdocs website, which I do reference later in the session. And all of this would be completely editable if you went to the file menu and make your own copy. In a Google Doc, you can certainly link to different experiences on the web. So the connection hook for this particular lesson is a study jams activity. And so these words link to the study jam activity. So what's happening here is that there are different sections for different tasks, and you might see open boxes where students are expected to write their answers in there. There's also the show what you know section with an interactive they have to complete, and then create a Google Slides presentation. And then here are some additional things to extend the learning. So very straightforward. Now, one thing you should keep in mind is that most Hyperdocs do not expand or do not limit themselves to one day's activity or one class period. Lots of times they expand beyond just the one lesson or the one day. And that's the beauty of it, because in Google Classroom, if you were going to be posting each one of these activities, you're looking at 5 or 6 posts in Google Classroom versus sharing this one Hyperdoc through Make a Copy for each student. And now you have just one post going out in Google Classroom. Similar setup, and we're not going to look at all of these for sure. Earth Day every day. So this was an Earth Day activity from the spring, little heading there, and then the Explore on the left and the student input on the right. And so they have to go through watch, read and learn, and there's links to things, watch the recycling video. Now you'll notice one difference between using docs and using slides is that you cannot embed a YouTube video in the doc itself so that students can watch it right here. They'll need to click on the link and go out to YouTube, which isn't typically a big deal. But if you want to keep everything packaged all in one place, then slides might be a better approach for you. And students can certainly still add their own content in slides. So here's an example, and you can see everything's color coded, the headings, the different sections of the Hyperdocs that we talked about. And then the teacher created some citations for things that were not hers that she wanted to attribute. Here's an example of a slide deck, and don't be alarmed by the, by the beauty of this. Like I said, there are some very high designed ones, and others are, quite simple. So this is an interactive slide deck. Students are taken through the Hyperdoc experience, starting with Explore. Let's look at what made the Lewis and Clark expedition possible. And so we're seeing things here like watch this video, and this is what I was talking about. You can just click, this is a Google Drive video. You can click right here and view that, read this, interact with this. And students would move through slide by slide. Now, this particular Hyperdoc took advantage of the interactivity of slides. Click on the circles to learn about the expedition. So, I guess I'm going to have some choice here. I can go to slide 9. And this is a way for me to learn about it using the online Lewis and Clark exhibit. So I'm going to learn about that. It links to it here. I'm ready to go back to my map so I can pick another thing to learn about. So the teacher set up the interactive links so I can go through the map and I can learn. Here's an example of where I would type my answer. You can see the font is really clean. It's really easy to read. The headings are really clearly defined. So when I'm using my reading skills, I can get everything underway very easily. It's great for compiling reflections after book talks. This is a book review activity. Here are some others. You can see, again, this is a familiar template, and the teacher used the same sections from the template. Went through, that's a Charlotte's Web Hyperdoc, so that might span several days. Sometimes they span several weeks if it's a full-blown project, a novel study. This district shared a full collection of elementary Hyperdocs that you can go ahead and take a look at by grade level. There is a site called Teachers Give Teachers, and that is a great place to go. That is a great place to go to find, and I'll fix that link, to find examples. There is a Twitter feed for Teachers Give Teachers, and you don't even need actual Twitter you don't need your own account to be here. But you can see all of these great examples that teachers are sharing for either Hyperdocs or for for Elon Musk lessons, which is kind of great. So those are all there. And let's take a look at this polygons doc. It is in Hyperdocs, and it is a Google Doc. This is a math lesson, some informational content to begin, and then identify the polygons. Now, this is a Google drawing that has been inserted into a doc. And if your students are younger, and you're trying to keep it as simple as possible, this is a great way to incorporate some interactivity because and the directions on this one are really clear. Double click the drawing, and that's how you edit it. So you can double click. Now you're taken into the drawing space that has full drag and drop capabilities. This would be great for sorting, for ELA. And you can pull these over, and when you're done, click save and close. And now the student work is represented here in that doc. And they just go through the highlighted sections. There's a video here, things to think about. Do polygons have the same name? If so, what? Type your answer in the box. Now, for design purposes, I will say it is much more difficult to design a combination of text and images in a Google Doc than it is in a Google slide set, because in slides you have full control over where things are placed. You can do text boxes freely, word art, images, embedded videos. So if your students are able to use slides, you can definitely build out in those. So let's take a look at some secondary options. These, of course, will get more complex based on the content explorations, based on the content that's being shared and the tasks that are included. So you'll be able to see a difference there in how they're designed. Let's check out the Culture Wars, which is a pretty incredible creation for secondary students. It's actually a digital notebook. And the teacher designed different tabs of the notebook to correlate to the different decades that students are studying. And when they're using the notebook, they're using it to reflect on what they've learned from the different decades, the things that they're working through. You can see the complexity of this creation. It's gorgeous. It's got a ton of links to assignments and places where students write their reflections and their responses. Everything's really well organized. Here's a table. There's built-in videos, authentic images. Someone put a lot of time into this, and it's amazing. And this will be something that you can continue to use and refine year after year. Here is a persuasive writing piece for 8th grade unit. The teacher has kind of built this out into planning and then writing. Step 2, write a thesis statement. Here's how we do that. Step 3, summarizing your issue. There's some examples built in. Step 4, find your support. So taking them through the writing process for a persuasive piece. Here's where you get your rubric. Here's how you submit your essay. Some schools link all these things to their LMS. So if you're using Classroom or Schoology, you can include those links right in. Here's a Giver book study, a novel Hyperdoc. These are all examples of things that kids are thinking through before, during, and after reading, having links to all the different experiences and the tasks that students need to complete through the book study. So chapter by chapter, the vocab that they need, any kind of content here, summarize the events of the chapters. Here's a vocabulary study. There's a slide deck of vocab and character analysis. Everything's built in to the Hyperdoc. So you can start to see how these are designed In the sciences and social studies, there's a great opportunity to bring in authentic visuals and content. This is also math. We'll take a look at that one. Let's look at the social studies, learning about the Byzantine Empire. We start out with some vocabulary work. Here's the term, write the vocabulary definitions beneath. We have reading, we have supportive images. We can take the drawing tools in Google Slides and we can draw lines on the map. We can annotate things right in that space. And so working through this visual, and this is great for the teacher to use in direct instruction when needed, through synchronous Zoom meetings or however you're organizing it. And it's also great for students to work through collaboratively or independently as needed. Here is a math example. Graphs of quadratic functions. So even with some of the higher level content, what are the characteristics of the flight path of this rocket? How high is it going to go and how long before it lands? This is my opening. Remember, starting off with that engage piece. Well, I am kind of interested in knowing about that rocket. So now the teacher is sharing vocabulary, reference points, and going through all the content. There's some think abouts through here. Here's some example graphs that are built in. And such things that I can't even talk about right now because I don't understand all of it. Transformations and translations. So you can push that out. Every student gets their own copy in Google Classroom. So as you're working through our slide deck, click on those links, look for the examples, and we'll make sure that you get a really good understanding of the types that are out there. So when it comes time to creating your own Hyperdoc, just keep in mind there's not one right way to create Hyperdocs. You are the master of the relationships with your students and the curriculum. You know it inside and out. So you can work to design a Hyperdoc that best meets the needs of your students. So don't be influenced by all the other examples. You can make it what it needs to be for your students. So if you were going to start with this Hyperdoc endeavor, where would you begin? Well, if you're brand new, you might want to pull from a template that's available or from samples that are shared. So to find the templates, visit the Hyperdocs website and click on Find Templates or Find Samples. So here is the Hyperdocs website. Find Templates, Samples, and there's a new menu called Hyperdocs. So these are some examples of going through teachers, give teachers just how to go through it. So here's the templates. These are the ones that represent different lesson design models. So the basic Hyperdoc template is the one that you saw in some of our examples, I believe, with the colors. And it has the key ingredients of Hyperdocs here. You go to File, make a copy, and then you have that Hyperdoc to design as your own and put your content and your activities and tasks for your students in that space. Other Hyperdoc templates, there's Explore, Explain, Apply. There's one for the 5 E's. So if your district is investigating the use of the 5 E's, which is pretty popular in the sciences and also through distance learning, you could check out that one. Here are some samples on the right-hand side using the template on the left-hand side. There's a hero's journey template and the workshop model template as well. So these are all in Docs, okay? Now, the other option is to go to certain web collections and try to build them around slide decks of interest. So one company, and it's not even a company, it's her name is Paula. She's a designer. She is awesome. She builds all of these wonderful digitally organized slide decks for teachers to use. Sometimes she calls them by the name Hyperdoc. Sometimes she calls them digital notebooks. So here's an example of a Hyperdoc handbook template for Google Slides or for PowerPoint. When I click on here, I can see the template and what's included. Notes and this notebook. And every section is labeled and I can jump to it. It's kind of awesome. It's interactive. When I'm here as the teacher, I can put in headings, text, videos, images, audio. You can insert all of that into your Hyperdoc, and you can also, if you're working with students who are doing a lot of their own designing, you can just put the basic information needed and they fill out the rest. Maybe they're creating their own notebook of learning based around the content. So there are a lot of education templates that she's created, different types of notebooks, different types of things that look like phone apps, planners. There's all sorts of things that you can explore. File cabinets, which are cute, game boards. So check out Slides Mania. And Slides Go has a number of back to school templates as well. Every time I come here, there's new ones. Different, here's an online notebook. If you click on education, you can see what they have, word work activity. So you could turn any of these sample templates into a Hyperdoc as well, and you can get a preview of what's included. These are very robust. These are long slide decks. You can just delete what you don't need when you're finished customizing it. If you would want to choose to start from scratch, of course, you could do that. You could start a new Google Doc or Google Slides. You could even try Google Drawings to build it out if you'd like to start from scratch. There are also the samples available through the Hyperdocs website. And what they did was organize by content area and also by theme, elementary, secondary, start of the year. So here are just some examples. If you're a science teacher, you could head to the science Google Drive folder. And these are filled with Hyperdocs that other teachers have created and shared in this space. Some of them are Google Docs, some of them are Google Slides. I'll pull up the astronomy unit. So this has an opening here. It has the objectives for students. Same thing, if you would like to edit this for your own, go to File, Make a Copy, Entire Presentation, or if you're just choosing certain slides to build off of, and then you'll get full editing rights over that copy. You can delete or add anything that you'd like to. Now, you're going to have to go through each slide, each link that's shared, and make sure that it's applicable and that it's functional. Some of these are a couple of years old now. There might be broken links in there. So if you use someone's sample, you do need to go through. You have to make sure things like this are still in existence and make sure that the links are functional. So don't just assume that everything is on the up and up just because you're using a sample. You definitely want to check that out. So there are options there for you to explore. If you are designing from scratch, what you can do is keep in mind some of these helpful formatting features, formatting tips and tricks. For sure, you should use tables whenever possible to organize your content. Visually, that's really helpful for students to make sure they can see key points, headings, directions, and things like that. There are some keyboard shortcuts that you could rely on, things like Control D or Command on a Mac. It is the duplicate mode and duplicate command, and it's like a copy and paste in one move. So if you need to make multiple shapes or multiple text boxes, you can Control D, Command D, and make them really quickly. Same with adding a hyperlink. Hyperlinks are essential in Hyperdocs because you're linking to other content on the web a lot of times, or to other slides, and Control K is the shortcut for that. For teachers who would like to give audio directions to your students and you're using Google Slides, you can use a service called Vocaroo to do that really easily. So let me show you how that works. I'll just get out of this clip here. Vocaroo is a free website and it requires no login. And when I click on the record button, for this activity, I would like you to explore the video that I have linked below and then answer the reflection questions. Short snippets of audio. Click save and share, and you get a number of different sharing options. But for the purpose of Google Slides, you're going to need to download the file, and you'll need to go to your Google Drive and upload the file. Now I'm just going to take it from the bottom of my Chrome browser and drag it up and drop, and it's going to import my file. Now, what's important to remember is that you have to share the audio just like you share a doc if you want students to be able to hear it. So click on anyone with the link can view or listen to, really, and click done. And then when you're ready to bring it into your slide, simply go to the Insert, Audio, and find your recording. It's an MP3 file, and then select. And now here it is. For this activity, I would like you to, you have a number of different, I think these are old ones. You have a number of different options for how the audio is played back. You can put it to autoplay. You can set it to autoplay when students get to the slide. For this activity, you can set it to play on a click if you want students to click on it, and you can decide what volume it gets blasted at. You can make sure that it stops when you hit the next slide, so you can set up all of those audio settings when you are building in your audio into your Hyperdoc. Other things you should know about: use your arrange menu to layer text and images. Use the Explore tool in Google Docs and Google Slides to find copyright friendly images for your work. And if you've never done that before, it is here. Tools, Explore. And you can do a keyword search if you need a picture of a giraffe for your slide. You can search on giraffe, and then your images. These have been filtered by usage rights. So I'm going to click on this little guy. He's super fun. He's from Pexels, so he is he's copyright friendly, and I can put him anywhere I want now. And it's also linked to the source, which is nice. So use that handy feature to find images to add. And also, if you're not using a particular slide deck with a specific background, you can always use your background menu and choose the color you'd like to have. They have solid or gradient. You can do that with Google Slides or with Google Docs. So those are some formatting tips and tricks. Did you know also that you can link to a specific assignment in Google Classroom? So as part of your Hyperdoc, if you're asking students to copy or reference one of their Google Classroom assignments, you can go ahead to the assignment in Classroom, go to your triple dots and choose Copy Link. And that will give you the URL that you would then paste into your Hyperdoc with the instructions of, hey, don't forget to submit this in Google Classroom, or don't forget to do this in Google Classroom. So take advantage of that specific linking feature. If you're interested in diving deeper into Google Slides, we had a workshop in the spring all about slides, so feel free to check that out and reference those instructional slides as well. And for even more ideas, check out the Hyperdocs hashtag on Twitter. As I mentioned earlier, you don't even need a Twitter account to scroll through the feed of the Hyperdocs hashtag. It's filled with people, teachers, educators sharing their awesome work day in and day out. So the Hyperdocs website is hyperdocs.co, and you can visit it. It's just been upgraded in the last couple of months. They're offering a series of courses for teachers if you really want to become a Hyperdocs guru. And so those are some things that you can check out. So I appreciate you learning about Hyperdocs with me. For Act 48 credit for this Flex live event or for the Flex on demand, please visit the Flex website, and that is linked here. And then there is an Act 48 info page, and that's where you'll find the Act 48 form. Thank you so much. Please be sure to reach out to lynnhill@berksiu.org with your questions and anything that you need. We'll see you at an upcoming session.